Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laura Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here in the morning. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another, and we're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Wednesday, August 24th. I'm glad to be here. Appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows. I almost have like 36,000 shows listened to. I just appreciate everybody who's taking the time to listen to what I have to say and follow me along on my journey and to spend this time with me. I know time is precious, and I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. You have to listen at your own discretion to all of my shows. I really, I know that this type of information can trigger people, right? So if you're a survivor and you're just on your healing journey, you need to be very sure and very careful about what you're listening to. Make sure it's not going to trigger you. If you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have permission to listen to my show. But from an adult, someone who's going to, listen to the show with you, to make sure that you should be listening to this type of material. This is a show about stopping child abuse. Really, all of my shows are, but it's, there's a lot of adult content on my shows, and I just believe in protecting children at all times. So, if you're under the age of 18, just make sure you have somebody with you who's older, who's an adult, who can listen, and make sure that you're making the right choice for yourself to listen. It's definitely not for younger children. It's not suitable for younger children. The issues are what they are. This is my healing journey here in the morning, one child abuse survivor to another. And hopefully the information I'm looking at is helpful for other people. Right now we're looking at Robert Burney's web pages, and Robert Burney, B-U-R-N-E-Y, he's a codependence counselor. He's a codependence therapist. He's a grief counselor. He's a spiritual teacher. He's an author. He's written a book called Codependence: The Dance of Wounded Souls, which is an awesome book. A good friend of mine sent me the book, which is just awesome. And he has a whole lot of web pages here. When you go to www.joy2meu.com, you can find the site index, and you can scroll through and see what you want to look at. He's got a lot of material there. We're not going to cover all of it. There's no way, but we're just going to finish up looking at a few things here. I was mostly interested in the inner child healing work and looking at codependency and whatnot. But there's a few more things I want to look at before we move on. And he's got some great stuff there. So I hope you will all check his website out and check his stuff out. We'll get right into this morning. We sort of left off on, we're looking at the recovery process, which is the third part of the recovery process for the inner child healing work that he's got, and it's through the fear. So he says the recovery process for inner child healing through the fear. That's what we're looking at. We're almost down to the end of the page. We're looking at an innocent little child, and that's about 3/4 of the way down the page. Yesterday we left off, and Robert Burney was saying, if I'm feeling like a failure and giving power to the critical parent voice within that is telling me that I am a failure, then I can get stuck in a very painful place where I'm shaming myself for being me. So he says, in this dynamic, I am being the victim of myself and also being my own perpetrator. And the next step is to rescue myself by using one of the old tools to go unconscious, for instance, food, alcohol, sex, etc. And thus the disease has me running around in a squirrel cage of suffering and shame, a dance of pain, blame, and self-abuse. And so he says, the disease of codependence, it's hard on people, and it's very much a societal issue. It's not just an individual issue. Society is very much codependent, and we almost can't even help but picking up these negative and these belief systems, these negative belief systems and negative thought processes, right? So he says, an innocent little child, this is where I want to pick up, and we're going to look at this morning. So thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it. He says, and it all goes back to being afraid that if I do it wrong, I will not survive the shame and pain of being imperfect. It all goes back to a little child who was terrified of his own father and could not count on his mother to defend him from his father. So this is Robert Burney talking. And Robert Burney's a survivor, and he's talking about his own process here, right? The little child whose higher powers were wounded and were reacting to life out of their fear and shame. So that fear is not rational, it's not logical, he says it is not conscious. It is an emotional reaction caused by early childhood trauma. So he says, if I'm alone, this is Robert Burney, if I'm alone on Valentine's Day, I will die. If I do not get this article finished on time, I will not survive. So he says, these fears are not stupid, they are not ridiculous, they are the result of the emotional experience of a little child, and that child deserves and needs compassion, not judgment and shame. So when we judge ourselves, we are abusing that little child inside of us. So when we are impatient with ourselves, we are dragging that child behind us as we run to get there, quote unquote, get there to the outcome, the destination that will make us okay. So it's quite interesting what he's talking about here. He's looking at his own process and talking about fear and all going back to childhood wounding, and that we need compassion, and we need we have needs, and we need compassion. We don't need judgment and shame. And I think so many times, even if people are not abused, will judge themselves too harshly. It's just sort of a societal thing. It's kind of like, well, if you're not a top executive, then you just must be a loser. Where I live up here in Canada, I mean, my God, like, especially Calgary. I mean, Calgary's like Houston. It's another Denver. It's another Houston. It's another, it's another prominent oil city. You know what I mean? In North America. People don't know a whole lot about Calgary. It sits up here pretty well on its own, under the radar, but it's actually a really nice city. And there's, we have our share of problems here too. But Calgary has got lots of money because it's an oil city. It's an oil town, and it's not even that big of a place. It's like just over a mill, I think. It's not that big, but yet, we have all the amenities here that like New York City pretty well has. And it's a busy place. Lots of people coming and going, all kinds of people here. People from around the world live here, and so it's very much an nice urban mix of people, and from every walk of life, right? So it's got everything you can think of, and but it's just this little small place in the middle of Alberta, which is a huge province. But there's lots of money floating around here. There's lots of executive jobs, and if you don't have an executive job, it's hard to make it here because it's so expensive to live. So you could be doing really well and working, just having a regular job, and you're going to have a hard time because it's really expensive to live here. And so it's easy to judge ourselves and say, well, I'm not an executive, so I don't have, the fancy cars and the big house, because property up here is like so expensive you wouldn't even believe it. And it's actually one of the most expensive places to live in the whole world, Canada right now. It always has been. But it's expensive up here, right? So a lot of people judge their lives based on whether or not they have really good salaries, they have income, they can afford to buy the best, and they're driving the best cars, they're living in the best homes. And then there's people like me, it's like, okay, I can't keep up with that. I can't measure up with that. And I have no intention on trying to keep up with that. You know what I mean? I have no desire to try to be an executive. I have no desire to try to stomp on people to get to the top. I just live and live my life, and I'm not trying to be with, keep up with the Joneses. But it would be real easy in a place like this to judge yourself really harshly. And a lot of people do, because it's like, you see these people driving around and the kind of homes they're living in, and you're thinking, and the kind of jobs that they have. I live right downtown. I'm right in the middle of the business district, really, where every rich person comes to go to work every day. And it's like I see these people and I see their vehicles and I know where they live. They don't live downtown. They're living in these $1.5 million homes. And, I'm thinking, man, I'm like $30,000 in debt. I don't even know really where my next meal's going to come from in about 2 or 3 months. So I can kind of squeeze it for a couple of months, and I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter because that's not what I base my life on. And I have huge faith and a huge belief system, right? So I'm not, I'm not panicking. But the thing is a lot of people would look at me and judge me, by, just by my standard of living. They would think, what a loser. So we could do that to ourselves too, right? So we could judge ourselves very harshly for not having that top executive job, or not driving the best cars, not living the best home in the neighborhood, sort of thing, right? Well, and I was talking about this on shows before. I don't do that to myself because I just grew up kind of right on the poverty line, and we were my parents made about $2 too much. My dad did. My dad made $2 too much for me to get in to get a hot lunch at school. And so otherwise I could have got a hot lunch at school if he hadn't made $2 more per month. If he didn't make $2, we would have been poverty level, and I would have got a free hot lunch right at school, but instead of that I got a sandwich. But I was pretty happy, that I had lunch, so I wasn't really all that unhappy, as far as that goes. I had food, so that's all right. But the thing is we were poverty line the whole time I was growing up. And so I'm used to that, right? I'm used to that. But a lot of people would judge me very harshly and probably think of me as, maybe somebody who's a bit of a lazy person or a slob or whatever they want to say. But really what it is it's a style of living that I'm accustomed to. I'm not trying to be an executive. I'm not trying to be, keeping up with the Joneses, right? Money doesn't bring me happiness, right? And so it doesn't make any sense for me to try to get some top executive job. The only reason I go for goals, like I actually have worked in executive jobs, and that's the whole issue, and held managerial positions. But the thing is, I do that for the personal enjoyment of the job. It really, I mean, the money's great. You know, I have made lots of money in my lifetime, but money just doesn't buy me any happiness. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't. It's just good to be able to pay the bills. You know what I mean? So that's my thing. I don't judge myself for not being the most top executive person in the city where I live. I mean, that's ridiculous. I think it's what people do to help each other. You know, it's what people can do to make somebody else's day, you know, great. I think that's what's really important. You know, because we don't know how long we have, and life is pretty short. And you know, if it's just going to be all about the climb that money ladder, that's not so much fun. I mean, some people are into it, and whatever they're into, that's fine. But it's just not for me. But I think it'd be really easy to judge and shame ourselves on every level. Oh, you know, I'm just this or I'm just that. And especially if you're abused as a child and, you know, you were told these things. Oh, you're just a lazy child or you're just a bad kid or whatever we were told as children by whether it was our parents or a coach or, you know, a teacher or anybody who had an influence on our life, you know, could have caused us to feel this shame or you know, judge ourselves too harshly, right? So it's not even always the parents, you know, could have been somebody else, could have even been siblings, you know, or relatives, like just anybody, right? And, you know, we have to be careful not to do that to ourselves, right? Because that's just not healthy at all. We need to look at our strengths, really. We need to look at what we can do, and that's what I do, you know, because when I was 18, this is just an example. I had a car accident when I was 18. It really almost killed me and my friends, and you know, it crippled me, right? I mean, I could no longer run. I couldn't walk really for about a year and a half, and just had to use crutches for a year and a half, and had to learn how to use my whole ankle and leg again. And it took me a long time to get rehabilitated, and it cost me a whole lot of money. And I never really ever could walk right again. You know what I mean? And I've learned now how to walk with just sort of a limp. But the thing is I can't run, and you know, that really limited me because I used to be able to run. Man, I used to run and run and run when I was young. I talk about it in my books and stuff. I used to run across the city when I was a little kid. You know, I used to love to run. And I used to love to run away from my mom when she was going to beat the shit out of me. You know what I mean? I used to run until she used to catch me. She used to catch me all the time. But the thing is I used to run, and I ran from cops. I mean, I used to be able to outrun police officers on foot. I was really fast, and I could really move. And I mean, I used to be able to outrun police officers, you know, and lose them down the street. You know, they could not catch up with me. And so, yeah, hey, well, that was when I was young and stupid. So, you know, when I had that car accident, I was 18. It was really quite shocking to me because all of a sudden I couldn't do the things I used to do. Go play basketball on the courts. You know, it was too hard on my ankle. It hurt too much, and all of a sudden I couldn't do some of the things that I really wanted to do. You know what I mean? So what it did is it caused me to slow down. You know, so actually I look at it almost as a blessing in disguise, right? And I mean, I was listening to an inspirational program yesterday about this woman who was wheelchair bound after a ski accident, right? Gina Gardner. I hope you will check her stuff out. Gina Gardner, Gina Gardner, Gardiner. She's awesome. And I was listening to a program here on Blog Talk Radio, and she had a ski accident where she was in a huge major accident, fell down the mountainside, and ended up in a wheelchair. And so she said, you know, instead of just letting that get her down and just ruin her life, she said she just all of a sudden became aware that there were so many other things that were available to her, and she just didn't let that get her down. And so, you know, that's kind of what I've done as far as my you know, my inability to run. I'm about what they say about, I don't know, 35-40% handicap, just because I can't really do much with my leg, right? And so I just thought, I don't care, you know, I'm just going to keep on going. And, you know, what it did was it actually made me slow down because I was always running. I was running all the time, and I still do. I still run, you know. I ran to Canada at the age of 30. I still run. That's running away, you know, running away from life, running away from society, running away from abusive parents, whatever it is. I'm still a runner, but what it did was it caused me to slow down. And so I have had to slow down because of it. And I think I would have ran. I talked about this one time to somebody. I can't remember who I was telling, but I said if I wouldn't have broke my ankle, I would have ran myself off the earth. I would have just kept running and running and running. I would have probably just killed myself. You know what I mean? Because by breaking my ankle, it made me slow down especially for about 2 years, in a period where I really needed to slow down. I was doing some heavy duty drugs, and I needed to slow down. And I didn't stop the drug use, but what it did was it caused me to have to sort of stop and think. And by the time my ankle healed, it was about the time I actually decided to get off the drugs and start straightening my life. So it actually, I think, did almost save my life. You know what I mean? I look at it like that, because I really realized that I had another chance, and it wasn't over, and that I could keep going. And so I think it's how, we need to look at the positives in our life and not let a lot of this stuff drag us down. And we do need to learn how to feel these feelings. So that's what I'm doing on my, that's what I'm doing with my healing journey. Really, instead of just stuffing my feelings like I was doing from what happened to me in my past, I'm just allowing myself to feel what I need to feel about it. Write it, speak it, talk it, whatever, work to prevent child abuse, whatever it is. But this is what I needed to do so that I could feel better. You know what I mean? And so everybody's going to have their own process. Everybody's going to have their own journey. And we need to make sure that we're really good to ourselves. We're not judging ourselves, not harshly, not with shame, and not that blame and shame game thing, right? It's like, well, if I wasn't this, I'd do this, or if I wasn't this, so stupid, or if I wasn't so lazy, or if I wasn't so fat, or if I wasn't so this. Always, looking at ourselves in a negative light. That's not right at all. And that's how I spent my childhood, with my whole family looking at me like that and telling me all these things and reinforcing it, you know what I mean? And then later as an adult, still treating me that way, you know what I mean? So I had to really learn how to believe in myself, and how to believe in my abilities. And the thing is I do make mistakes, right? And mistakes are hard to make when you actually, have a lot of self-loathing going on. It's already hard enough to be in our shoes as survivors of abuse, But the thing is we are going to make mistakes, and we're going to have to not be hard on ourselves. We're going to have to be kind to ourselves, because so many other people will not be kind to us, right? You make a mistake when you're down, people would kick you, right? A lot of times. It's really rare to find somebody when you're actually down and out, that somebody that will notice and will try to help you up. A lot of times people will actually take advantage of that to make themselves look better, and they will kick you when you're down. And so we have to be really good to ourselves. You know what I mean? Like when we make mistakes and we just aren't, be doing exactly what we need to be doing. Instead of being hard on ourselves, we need to be compassionate to ourselves, because we're just like that little child who was abused, needed a hand up, not to be kicked some more. You know what I mean? We needed help as children, and we didn't get it. You know what I mean? And so what we've learned how to do, I believe, as survivors of abuse, is we've learned how to say, that's okay, I don't need that help anyway, go ahead and kick me. You know what I mean? And, and then hurt ourselves in the meantime, because we're for whatever reason not going to be good to ourselves, to be kind to ourselves. So many people will self-injure, so many people will just, just go backwards in their healing journey, things like this, right? We need to really learn how to take care of ourselves, and because nobody else will do that for us. We really have to do that ourselves. And sometimes it's great when you actually have someone in your life that will do that for you. I have some great friends, which is just amazing. But the thing is not everybody does. You know what I mean? Not everybody's in that position. I know, because I haven't always been in that position where I've had support. And so we need to be kind to ourselves and good to ourselves, and realize that, hey, we're going to make mistakes, because we're all human. That's what Robert Burney's really talking about a lot of times here. He says, I'll just read right from where Robert Burney picks up here. He says, I heard Claudia Black in a workshop many years ago talking about going for a walk on the beach with a 4-year-old child, and she asked something to the effect of, what pace do you walk at, the child's pace, or do you drag the child along behind you at your pace? So he says, we have spent our lives either dragging the child along or running away from the child within us, and working real hard on getting, quote-unquote, there, and doing whatever we could to go unconscious to our own feelings. So we locked the child up in a dark place within us. At the same time, we let the child's emotional wounds run our life. And we were powerless to do anything any differently until we got into recovery, just as our parents were powerless to do life any differently because of the wounded children within them. So it's kind of interesting. He's talking about the whole parental issue of parents being wounded and then abusing their children or wounding their children, and that's just, in my case, exactly the case. But the thing is not everybody who's been abused has been abused by their parents. It could be somebody else. It could have been a coach, a mentor, teacher, neighbor. I mean, who knows? A relative of some sort, right? Or even a sibling. And, this is just the thing. These people are wounded, and that's why they do what they do, right? Does it make it right? Absolutely not. But it's the facts, right? It's the way it is. People want to pass on their anger, their rage towards other people. People want to pass on their disappointments to other people. People want to just reflect what's going on in them onto other people, and especially onto their children or other people's children. It's incredibly wrong to do that. You know what I mean? Just because I'm hurting and I'm suffering doesn't mean that. Let's say I'm having a hard day and I'm having flashbacks and I'm having a real tough time with dealing with stuff from my past, and working through some feelings, working through some grieving. Doesn't mean I can go and just dump all over my sweetheart who lives with me. Right? There has to be a separation there. Like, he's not responsible for my pain, right? And so I don't dump my garbage on my sweetheart, right? I'm very careful not to do that because he's a good man. I mean, we have our issues like every couple, you know what I mean? Every couple will have their things they need to work through. But he's a good man, and he cares about me, and he does, what he doesn't do is crowd me. He gives me a lot of space. He gives me the time I need to work through things. He sometimes seems almost unsupportive because of that. But we've never ever been the type of couple to be hanging around each other's throats, you know what I mean? Like, I'm a very independent person, and so is he. So, it works in that respect. But the thing is I don't dump my stuff on him because I'm having flashbacks or hurting. And when we actually get into our spats, our relationship spats, I have to remember that he's not coming at me from the position of my parents. Because quite often when people get mad at me, or if somebody's upset with me, I hear it's my parents all over again. You know what I mean? And when my parents were upset with me, it wasn't, I think you need to go to your room now, daughter, or I think we're going to take some privileges, daughter. My parents would come at me and beat the shit out of me, right? And knock me to the ground and kick my ass. You know what I mean? Not together, separately. They would never beat on me together. They weren't. They were always. They would have been beating on each other. They weren't beating on. They didn't never pick on us all together. You know what I mean? Like, my mother beat on us separately and my dad beat on us separately, but the two of them, was their reaction to anything. If I burned the kitchen towel on the stove, One time I burned the fringes on the kitchen towel and I panicked and freaked out because I knew I was going to catch a beating for that if my mom saw that. I mean, she'd kill me for burning the fringes on a kitchen towel. So I was like, oh my God. So I went and I cut the fringes off the towel, and I had to remember to cut the fringes off the other side because I thought, man, she's going to see the fringes are missing from this one side, and then she's going to beat my ass. And I mean, that's the fear that I lived in because that was my mother. She would beat me for no reason or just any reason. It didn't really matter, right? And so, and we're not talking a slap around. We're talking an ass kicking, a severe beating that would cause me some serious pain, and injure me, right? So I mean, I was like, oh my God, that's so. When people now today get angry with me, I'm that little frightened child that's still trying to avoid catching a beating or still trying to avoid being mistreated or screamed at or yelled at or hollered at, right? And so I have to remember that who I'm dealing with, it's a boss. It's my sweetheart. It's not my parents coming at me with that belt or with that rolling pin or whatever it is they're going to beat the shit out of me with. The thing is that I also will not tolerate any abuse. I talked about that on my show yesterday. Actually, I've been talking about that all since last week. Is that I will not be re-victimized. So I'm very much aware of people's behaviors around me, and I want to be treated with respect. So I'll treat other people with respect. And the minute somebody thinks they're going to stomp on me, they got another thing coming. Because I'm perfectly willing to, as an adult, stand up for myself. As a child, there wasn't anything I could do about that. But, I'm an adult, and it is my responsibility to stand up for myself. And, I have my clear boundaries set, like I was talking about yesterday. We have to be very careful that we don't allow ourselves to get hurt. What he's talking about, he says, that we lock the child up in a dark place within us. At the same time, we let the child's emotional wounds run our life. And so that's kind of where I was getting at, is like, these decisions that we make, sometimes they're based on my inner child. And my inner children, are young, and they shouldn't be driving the bus. They shouldn't be running my life. They're too young. Right? They don't really know what an adult person needs. These are little children, right? So we can't let them run the bus. We can't let them run the show. And that's what I was really letting. Most of my self-sabotaging behaviors came from my 8-year-old, my 10-year-old within me, basically, and they still do. Anything that I do that's kind of self-sabotaging, whatever it is in my life that I'm doing, is still from them, from those inner children that are still have quite a bit of control within me to make these decisions, because I don't want to get hurt again. You know what I mean? And I know people hurt people. I'm not a fool. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people out here just running around saying, oh, you have to trust everybody. You have to learn how to trust. Well, you have to be very careful who you trust, because people will hurt you. And they don't mind. They're perfectly happy to do it. And they will not apologize, and they will run you down. You know what I mean? And they will make you feel bad, and they won't care. And that's a sad thing, and that's reality. And we live in a pretty sad and pathetic world, but that's the way it is. So I'm very careful who I trust, and I don't just trust everybody. As a matter of fact, I don't trust anybody. They have to prove they're trustworthy, just like me. I want to prove that I'm trustworthy, so I want people to give me a chance. I don't expect people to trust me face up, just right in front of their face. Hello, you've never seen me before. I expect your full trust. No, I don't think so. Nobody's going to do that. That's very unrealistic. The thing is that we need to learn how to open up enough to let somebody prove that they're trustworthy. If they're not, we don't have to hang around with them. We don't have to have anything to do with them. We can shut them out. If all they're going to do is hurt us some more, we'll forget that. So most of my relationship stuff, obviously all of it, is based on this wounded child or these wounded children within me, And it's been so incredibly hard. But I'm so much. I will not be re-victimized. And that's my huge message for anybody out here who's been abused, not to allow yourself to be re-victimized, because it's so easy to fall into this whole thing of, okay, I need to learn how to trust, I need to open up, and I need to, and you got to be very, very careful who you open up to and who you let into your life, because there's a lot of sick people out there who have intent to hurt other people, and they really don't care, And I'm not talking about battering. It's not like I'm thinking somebody's going to beat me up like my parents did or rape me like my brother did. I'm thinking it's a matter of somebody grabbing a hold of my heart and setting me up for a huge fall. Because what they're going to do is they're going to say all these nice things to me. They're going to build me up, and then what they're going to do is cut my heart with a knife, and then they're going to treat me like crap. And I'm like, you know what? I don't let just everybody into my life. You know what I mean? Like people, and if somebody is in my life and they hurt me and they do not apologize, they are gone. Yeah, really quickly, because I will not tolerate it. I had to put up with that crap my whole entire life from my family, from the very people that were supposed to love me. Chose to hurt me and try to kill me. My parents tried to kill me. That's the whole issue. My parents tried to kill all their children, and for me, it's a matter of self-protection. It's like I don't need, it's not like I figure like everybody's going to try to kill me, but I figure, that people will hurt other people, and they do. But if they don't apologize for it, they don't try to make amends for it, and they just expect that you should take it, which is what my parents thought, that, and that's what my parents insisted on, that we all just take this abuse, because that's what they did. They abused us all the way through, Then, as an adult, I can't allow people like that in my life. If they're not going to be real and be human with me and say, look, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, or at least say, I'm sorry and let's talk about it or whatever. But if they're not going to apologize and they know they've hurt me, they're gone really fast, because I will not be re-victimized, period, end of story. But you know what? I'm going to come out of this a really whole, healthy person, right? And so I just don't go along with everybody's dysfunctional garbage. So I really like what Robert Burney has to say. You know what I mean? That these, we have these choices now. You know what I mean? We don't have to be codependent. We don't have to be living in this dysfunction, right? Like, we can change our belief systems, those negative patterns of behavior, those negative belief systems. We can change that. You know what I mean? And that's what I've been working on for 4.5 years. And it's made a huge difference in my life. Huge. And so, I would just say to keep going, whatever's working for you, make sure you do reach out and get some help. Don't allow yourself to suffer and just be, on your own in sadness and sorrow. You can join groups anonymously, which is just awesome. You don't have to give your name. You can just join with a username, so many times those adult survivor groups, right? But just make sure that you you get help, and don't allow people to hurt you. Don't allow people to run over you and to treat you badly. Like, you don't deserve that. Nobody does. We deserve to be able to live with dignity and respect, the human dignity and respect. And I demand it, and I actually, but I also give it. And so we have to be very careful what we're doing. And but treat yourself right. Do the right thing by yourself. You know what I mean? Stick around. Don't give up. So thanks everybody for being here. I'll be back on tonight on my show. Child abuse prevention is up to us, as well as again tomorrow morning, one child abuse survivor to another. Have a great day, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. And if you need something, I'll be around. I'll be here on Facebook, and I'll be everywhere. So if you want to get a hold of me, please do. I need all the friends I can get. Take good care of yourself. Bye bye.